And welcome back once again to Ask Coach Wendy alongside Wendy Mader from T2 Coaching. I'm Dave Erickson. And if you are preparing for, let's say, a half marathon or a marathon, we're going to talk about heart rate this time and how we incorporate heart rate monitoring in your training. So what's your take on that, Wendy?
I think there's a huge benefit to heart rate training if you're following your own heart rate training zones. So if you're someone who does want to use the heart rate monitor during your training, you should do some baseline fitness testing. You can do a field test. A common field test is to go out and run a 5K as fast as you can, wear your heart rate monitor, take that average heart rate, calculate your training zones. Or you can actually go to a laboratory setting, do a running test on the treadmill with your heart rate monitor while someone's recording some data, and they can tell you what your heart rate training zones are. Again, a little more on that is once you have your average heart rate or from the test, it's usually your lactate threshold heart rate, and from there you can calculate zones 1 and 5. Those are pretty common zones to train with. One reason I prefer to train by heart rate versus training by pace is your running pace is dictated by the terrain you're running on. So if you're someone who's so focused on a pace such as an 8-minute mile and you start running uphill or downhill, your pace is going to change, and as well as your heart rate at that pace. But if you're someone, like me, who's just wants to go at a nice steady effort, whether I'm going uphill, downhill, or flat, what I like to use is my heart rate, so then I can just keep my heart rate at, let's just say, 150 beats. So when I run uphill, I'm going to slow down a little bit to keep my heart rate lower. And then when I'm running downhill, I'm going to speed up to keep my heart rate level. So I just think it's a better tool to use, especially for beginner athletes, to use heart rate training from a pace instead of pace. And then also it's good to use to make sure you're staying, if your training plan calls for an aerobic zone 1 and 2, your heart rate monitor, you should be running at your heart rate aerobic zone 1 and 2 effort. When you're running supposed to be running like a track workout or a speed workout or another lactate threshold workout, it kind of keeps you honest. So you're going to run it by your heart rate to make sure you're running fast enough. A lot of athletes, especially beginner intermediate athlete, will tend to train in their what's called the gray zone. They're usually at a moderate effort. They're neither too high or too low, but the heart rate monitor is a number that'll help you learn kind of various efforts that you're training in.
And isn't there something about heart rate, I think there is, that can tell you whether or not you are getting sick or tells you your fitness level? I mean, you can learn a lot from your heart rate numbers.
Yes. So generally speaking, if you know your resting heart rate, that's your morning heart rate in a rested state, not something that startled you by an alarm. But if you take your heart rate every morning for a few mornings and you actually take your pulse and you know generally what your resting heart rate is, whether you take it your pulse or take it with a heart rate monitor, then if you're starting to feel a little bit tired, a little bit fatigued, and your heart rate monitor tells you your, resting heart rate's about 10 beats higher than normal, that means you should kind of lay low, take a day off. You either could be a little bit overtrained, you could be getting sick, you might just be tired from lack of sleep. But the benefit of knowing that, it's just a confirmation that you're not feeling well. And you should take some time to rest. It just kind of allows you to say, yeah, your heart rate's 10 beats higher, you should take some time off.
I like that. You can prevent overtraining because of what you learned from your heart rate.
Exactly. And I got a heart rate monitor when I started triathlon in 1992. And I just thought it was the greatest tool in the world. And so I'm very versed on heart rate training for myself as well as for athletes I coach. I think it's just a very valuable tool used in the right way.
I want to add to one thing you talked about with pacing can change. That's why it's a good idea to keep track of heart rate. One thing that I've been trained with in the past is on a negative split run, for example, to increase my heart rate beats by maybe 5 on the way back from a run versus worrying about the speed per se, because it's the effort on the way back.
Right. It kind of puts a number to your effort, because on the way back, maybe you're going to be running downhill on the way back. And so your heart rate will help you speed up a little bit on the way back, or maybe you're going to be running uphill. When it comes to training, I like to encourage athletes to use their heart rate monitor to gauge their effort. So when you're trying to figure out your rate of perceived effort on a scale of 1 to 10, your heart rate monitor can help you learn that. So you not only can rely on heart rate, but you can rely on your rate of perceived effort as well. It keeps you honest, it keeps you easy, and it keeps you going hard.
I don't know if this is going to open a can of worms, but weather factors on what your heart rate will tell you. So if you're in a humid area or super cold, that can change your heart rate. Because I know if I've gone to Arizona and it's extra hot that day, or if I'm, let's say, in Coeur d'Alene a couple years ago, it was super hot, my heart rate was skyrocketed, but it was because of the environment, not so much my fitness level.
Right. So a hot, humid climate is going to elevate your heart rate at a given perceived effort. So if you normally run at a heart rate of 150 beats and your rate of perceived effort on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 5, and you all of a sudden travel to a hotter climate, your rate of perceived effort may still be a 5, but your heart rate may be elevated due to climate. So it is good to educate yourself on things that affect heart rate. Hydration status. If you're dehydrated, your heart rate's going to be elevated at a modest rate of perceived effort, such as a level 5. So it kind of keeps you more mindful and educated about climate changes, that how it affects heart rate and hydration status, as well as nutrition. If you're depleted, your heart rate's going to be higher at a given rate of perceived effort.
And you're very, very clear and deliberate with the way you organize your training plans. For example, the half Ironman training plan made easy, or the marathon training plan made easy. You incorporate zones 1, 2, 2, 3, or maybe a 4 in there every once in a while with your training plans.
Right. On any training plan I've ever created, I use heart rate, and I help people, educate people about heart rate and how to calculate their heart rate training zones. So they're not just going out for a 4 or 5, 10-mile run. There's some structure within it, and it's based on heart rate. Or for those who aren't ready for heart rate, it's based on their pace, so 1 through 4 as well.
If you are a beginner runner looking to do a half marathon or a full marathon, I encourage you to check out the plans that Wendy has created. There are links below. You can get it via PDF on t2coaching.com or endurancehour.com, or automatically uploaded to your account on Training Peaks. Tell them about that part.
So Training Peaks is an online software. A lot of athletes right now use Training Peaks. If you don't have one, you can get a basic account. It's for free. And then you can go search Wendy Mader's half marathon or marathon program made easy and purchase it directly from Training Peaks, and it'll automatically be downloaded into your Training Peaks account. And you can download it for any start date that you're ready to start. So if you download a 12-week program, but your race is 20 weeks away, you can download it to start 12 weeks out from your race date. And then you own it, and you can reapply the program for a future year or future time if you like the program and you want to do it again. One benefit of doing a program multiple times is your fitness level changes, so your training zones change. So then you can still do the same plan at a different fitness level, follow different heart rate zones according to your fitness level.
It is so convenient to have it on Training Peaks. Again, links below, and you can also find it on Training Peaks directly. All right, thanks very much, Coach. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.